This is Fox 5 Morning News.
Women tend to outlive men, but when it comes to finances, experts say a lot of women haven't made any contingency plan for their future. Well, joining us now with some sound steps that women can take to improve their fiscal future is Samantha Freilich, a certified financial planner, and Vice President at Bernard R. Wolf and Associates. Thanks for coming in today.
Thank you for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
It is so important to talk about this, and I thought it was interesting that looking at some of the numbers that 90% of women will eventually be solely responsible for their financial planning. And why is that?
Well, you know, we face a lot of challenges as women. We typically retire on 2/3 of the amount that a man would have to work with at retirement, yet we live 5 years longer. So that's a greater challenge. We should be devoting even more time to our long-term retirement planning than a man should. And unfortunately, you know, I find women tend to be great at the day-to-day finances and managing a household budget, but they tend to leave those longer-term decisions to someone else that they trust. And unfortunately, what can happen is later in life, that person who you trusted, they may not be around anymore, or the trust may be misplaced at some point. So it's important to be in the driver's seat and really know what's going on around you so that you're not vulnerable someday when you really need to make some important decisions.
That's so true. So let's talk about, you have 5 financial tips that every woman really does need to know. The first one is really just to take the driver's seat.
Right. Absolutely. Like I just said, I think, you know, the second one, think emergencies. I think the 2008-2009 financial crisis was a perfect example of that. You know, a lot of people ended up without a job for a while, whether it's unemployment or a large medical expense that can come up. You know, you need to have an emergency fund to help kind of soften that blow because life throws us curveballs. We need to be ready.
Even kind of a separate account, where you're the only person on that account having.
Absolutely. And, you know, if you're married, make sure that you've had a conversation with your spouse. If they're the main one working, make sure that they've had a fund in place and that you've had a conversation about that.
Okay. Also, just generally take care of yourself. What exactly do you mean by this?
Well, I tend to think that women are caretakers in nature, and that makes us wonderful wives and wonderful mothers. But unfortunately, what we tend to do is we focus on taking care of other people so much that we don't take care of ourselves. And those people who we're trying to take care of and do everything for, later on in life, we don't want to be a burden to them. But when we don't take care of ourselves, that's exactly who we end up being a burden to. So I think, you know, long-term care is a very important consideration. And if you're a single woman, more importantly, disability insurance, because if you find yourself unable to work, you may not have a spouse or someone else to fall back on.
Mm-hmm. The other thing you say is be realistic. How so? Just being honest with yourself, be realistic about what you can do?
Yeah, I mean, when we do a financial plan at my firm, one of the first things that we talk about is getting a handle on your cash flow, right? What money do you have coming in? What expenses are going out? At the end of the month, if you have more expenses than you have income, you've got a real problem. And if you can't at least start saving for retirement, you know, you're gonna have a real issue longer term for when you don't have all the income coming in that you normally would have.
And also because we can't solely rely on Social Security really anymore.
Absolutely. The first page of the Social Security statement says this should not be your sole source of income during retirement.
All right.
It should
Good
only
reminder.
supplement a small part. Right.
All right. And lastly, ask an advisor. But how do you know who the right advisor is for you or who is really qualified to really be handling your money?
Well, I always recommend, you know, there's obviously a lot of advisors out there, but it's very intimate. It requires a lot of trust. You need to work with somebody who you trust, who you feel comfortable with, because you need to have good communication with that person. And you share a lot of private details with your advisor. So it has to be someone that you trust, obviously, but also a great tip is, you know, a certified financial planner is held to higher industry standards as far as education, experience, and ethical considerations. So I always recommend a great tool. There's a CFP website, www.cfp.net/find. You can find one in your area.
And we also have that link to our website as well, myfoxdc.com. Samantha Freilich with Bernard Wolf and Associates. Thanks so much for coming in today.
Thanks for having me,
This is such useful information. It's a good reminder, even if you've heard it before, but it's a good reminder to hear it again.
Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Samantha.